Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and I am joined as always by my co-host, Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
There's cats chasing each other over there. I was caught off guard for a second. Yes, we're going to talk about Terminator Dark Fate. This is our sci-fi movie podcast. We talk about science fiction films every week. This is actually an extra episode because when there's a new theatre release that we want to get to immediately, we do it and we put it straight out, and it's good fun. And of course, over the last 3 or 4 months, we worked our way through the entire Terminator franchise. Well, the movies anyway. We didn't do a TV show. And we did Terminator, Terminator 2, Terminator 3, Salvation, and Genesis. And those were all meaty discussions. We went, close to or just over 2 hours on every single one. And obviously the first 2 were very positive and had lots of analysis and sort of praise and all that kind of things. And then 3, Salvation and Genesis, had a lot of critiques and ranting and passion in a different kind of way. Genesis was a low point amongst low points. And we were very curious to see how this new film, Terminator Dark Fate, would work, possibly salvage the reputation of the franchise if possible. So we're here to talk about the 6th Terminator film. We will start spoiler free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning in the middle before we go into spoilers, but here we go. So the plot of Terminator Dark Fate is as follows. A villainous Terminator, which is called a Rev 9, is sent back through time to kill a young woman named Danny. A woman named Grace is sent back through time by the Resistance to protect her. Sounds straightforward so far, right? And ultimately, though, Linda Hamilton returns as Sarah Connor and is there as kind of a wild card. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger is in there as well, but I can't really talk about his part too much. So he's in the trailers and stuff, but who he is or what's going on with him, spoilers.
I guess there's more spoiler.
Yeah, get to that in spoilers. But yeah, so it's got some fair enough simple Terminator setup, doing kind of the
familiar
classic
Terminator
thing.
setup. Yeah.
Yes, and that's basically it. And I will leave it there in terms of spoilers, and we will get cracking with thoughts. So Tara, this is a big moment because we've had very negative opinions on the last 3 movies, and we hope that this one might not suck. And dare I say, I was cautiously optimistic. And I do mean cautiously. So, Tara, did you enjoy Terminator Dark Fate?
I will say that yes, I enjoyed it. Yes, I think it's a pretty good movie. I do have some things that I don't like about it, but for the most part, yeah, I was pretty satisfied. I thought it was a decent Terminator film. What about you?
I do have problems. Some of them bigger than others. There's definitely going to be not a rant, but there's going to be a little speech about a certain type of film that gets made now, which this falls into a mold. But I will say this. This is easily the best sequel since T2.
Easily.
Admittedly, the bar is not high for that
So
remark.
low.
But what this has that the others don't is I think this one does at least have something to say, and it has some really good ideas in there. I wish some of those new ideas had more time spent on them. They feel a little bit rushed in places. But there is some good ideas in there, and there's actually some nice moments, and there's some good characters that are added, which is nice. It's the first time maybe that they've actually tried to make us care about new characters in a Terminator movie since T2. Yes. So that's nice.
I think they did a fairly good job of mining through the sequels that we didn't like to get some of the ideas that worked also and put them into this one. I do really like the new characters a lot.
The new characters are pretty good. And I think how they kind of set up what the future's like now and some of the other stuff I think is good. Again, I do almost every idea I like in this. I do think it feels a little shortchanged. Like I wish it was given a bit more time to like really cook. And I'll get into that a bit deeper when we actually go through the plot. But there's definitely things where I'm like, I love the idea of this. Like, oh, this is what we're doing with Arnold. Okay, I actually kind of love that idea. I just wish we spent more time focused on it so that we really felt the story. We really got the meat of it. Sorry, Tara, no offense. I use the word meat. Sorry.
Yes, we really got the beans of it. I don't know. I don't care if you use sword meat.
I was joking. It was a joke. Um,
Thanks for considering my feelings, though.
yes. So yeah. So I mean, some of the talking points we went through and all the previous ones, I think we have to hit here. So there is at the very start of the film, there is a flash forward as we often see, or at least a vision of the future as we see in the classic Terminator films. And what's funny is that as soon as this scene played in the theater for me, I had this big grin in my face, because what did we say about both Genesis and Salvation, especially not as much 3, although 3 still felt a bit off. We talked about how, where's the laser beams? Where's those sound effects? Why does it not look like Terminator flashback in the future? Where's all this shit?
Yep.
And
This one gets it.
we see skeletons come out of water, and we just hear the nah, nah, and I'm like, holy shit.
And then they go pew 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 pew, and lasers come out. Yes.
And I'm like, okay, all right, you're starting me off in a good footing here. All right,
Yeah.
nice start.
And it doesn't look like a TV movie.
It doesn't, no. It definitely looks the best out of the previous film. I don't think the direction is perfect. I think there is some murky action scenes, especially later on. But
Oh yeah, I'm just talking about the scene specifically.
yeah, sure, yeah.
The opening shot.
Yeah, the opening shot looks really good, actually. There's this.
There's also we'll talk about it, spoilers, but there's some de-aging work that's done that it is insanely good.
Yeah, no, there is.
Which is interesting also, because I do have a problem with the visual effects and
the visual effects across the board, the like on an average, are probably mediocre. Like,
yeah.
But
the de-aging scenes are.
That's because they spent all the money on the de-aging. They thought, no, we need to make this has to be perfect. People will forgive bad CG action figures and explosions when the stuff's going on, but we need to get this perfect.
It was the best that I've seen.
It might be the best I've seen too in terms of de-aging. So that's really cool. We can't talk about that until spoilers though. This is still. So that's cool. Now, there's not a lot of it, admittedly, this future stuff. And there's reasons why later on there's a different type of future that we see that's different, but it did kind of nail that right away, which is nice. We always bring up music. I do think this is easily the best soundtrack since T2.
Still not enough of the main theme for me, but yeah.
I mean, it's not actually that much
they
less.
They open with it and they end with it, and there's a nice like little soft do 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 in the middle.
Oh yeah, no, I don't need it to always be the big bombastic version. Like I'll take, because the first time we hear it in this, actually, it's just really subtly in like some guitar. Like there's like some Spanish guitar playing at one point when we're introduced to Danny's character. And you can and you can just hear it a little bit, and I'm like, oh, they snuck it in there. That was nice. Like, I don't need it to be the big bombastic version. There's actually quite a lot of hints of it in this. Maybe even more than Terminator 2.
I haven't listened to the score on its own.
But I really I dug the music a lot, and I think some of the big payoff, the big bombastic moments where it really kicks in the big themes, are really good. So that's nice. I'm pleased to be positive about the music. I think if I'm making like sort of general complaints about things, all other than just like some of the ideas feeling a little bit rushed, and maybe some pacing issues where it kind of sags a little bit in the middle, there is, okay, so there's this general thing, and I can maybe talk about again a bit more in spoilers when I can bring up some specifics, but I do want to say it does kind of fill in this very cynical part of my brain where people have been comparing this to The Force Awakens, right? And you can literally take The Force Awakens and assign the characters in this to the characters in The Force Awakens, and it works almost perfectly, right? I won't do it because it'll spoil what happens to some characters in this, but you can just
People have been comparing it to The Force Awakens, you said?
Yeah.
Huh?
And it's
I understand why when you say it, but like...
And it's really easy, and it fits into a mold, and I think it lines up with The Force Awakens, but it also really heavily lines up with a couple other movies. It lines up heavily with with Halloween from last year. It lines up with Jurassic World. And what do all these movies have in common? They're all franchises coming back. They're all these nostalgia sequels that come back years later that exist to both sort of like harken back to the originals and have a lot of nostalgia, but try and introduce new characters to take it forward. And I think there, like, and I like, I didn't like Halloween that much. I thought Halloween had some problems, and I think this movie suffers from some of the same problems, but it's not as severe as what Halloween did. But I do think there's a cynical part of my brain now where it's starting to feel almost formulaic, where there's almost like a checkbox of how many times we have to reference something in the original film. And it does have that sequel problem where it has to kind of ruin the ending of the good movie to have a sequel. It has to kind of do that, and we'll get into that in spoilers how it does that. But it's kind of funny to me that one of the most notorious examples of that of all time is Alien 3, which is a sequel to a James Cameron movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny that this movie kind of does something like that. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't feel as bad as Alien 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's so far removed, and it's because it's like... Because this is one of these weird things where when I'm watching T1 and T2 now, I'm not going to just think in my head that this is definitely happening next. This is so far removed from those movies that this feels like an optional extension that happens years later. It's like an optional add-on, but this is never going to... Like, we are so far gone from T2, there will never be a real T3. Never.
I don't think it's possible to make one. The only thing that would work is if you... I really love the new characters in this movie, and I think you could have made a great Terminator film with just them.
Yeah, you didn't need Arnold and Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton in this, though. I do really love seeing Sarah Connor, and I like her journey in this. I think it's a little bit on the nose with some of the dialogue that she has, but that's okay.
One of her first lines was one of the worst lines of the movie. I hated they gave her a line.
Did not need it. I gotta say, I kind of wish Arnold wasn't in it.
Here's the weird thing. Arnold has a couple of great moments, and
he is hysterical in this movie. Like, he has the funniest lines.
Well, he's 50-50.
I kind of wish that he just wasn't in it at all.
He's 50-50. He's got two really funny lines, and then he's got two really, really bad jokes that reminded me of Terminator 3, and I cringed. Right? I'll say one of them right now.
Yeah, we'll save them, but like...
I'll say one right now. I'll just say the one about it, and it's Texas. That made me groan. I hated that line.
Oh, yeah.
I hated that line. But anyway, so it does this thing where, like, it has to kind of break, because Terminator 2 ended the story. It was perfectly complete and succinct, and like...
Yeah, that's the thing. But if you want to make a Terminator 3, then you have to have a new Judgment Day.
And that's what this is. This movie is wanting to be Terminator 3, but it's also wanting to be the start of a new Terminator trilogy. It's wanting to be the rise of the Terminator of the Apes, or whatever you want to call it, right? And for the record, that Apes trilogy is the gold standard for bringing a franchise back. That is what I will compare everything else to when it comes to bringing something back for a new go-round. And
especially when it comes to a franchise, you're like, do we need this? But yes, we need this.
but to go back to my point about we're never going to get something that feels like a true T3, even if it was James Cameron directing at this point. It's just too far now. Like, it's the same with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That doesn't like, when I think of Indiana Jones, I don't think of it as a quadrilogy. I think of it as a trilogy, and then there's that fourth extra one that you can add on. Yeah. When I think of Jurassic Park, I think of it as one trilogy, and then the Jurassic World trilogy.
Jurassic World trilogy that's coming out,
and it's kind of this optional add-on. I mean, hell, even the second two are optional, and then the first one just kind of stands on its own, really. But but
even though the second one's Spielberg.
So and it's just kind of this thing where once enough time passes, like, it's always going to have this kind of, like, I don't want to quite say fan fiction, although a lot of them do feel like that. But it always has this kind of separate thing, because now you've got someone who grew up loving it and is a fan and is now making the movie, and it's always going to feel like second generational. And to me, that always it makes it feel like this movie is on par with like a tie-in novel, which doesn't mean it can't be amazing, and maybe I'll love this new tie-in series, but it's always going to feel like this optional extra thing that's tacked on as opposed to the original core real thing. If that makes sense.
No, it does.
And I felt so even though I was mostly enjoying this movie, I did have that feeling where, oh, this is an optional add-on, it's an extra thing, it's pretty nice. I think there's some pacing issues. I don't think the action, like, there's some good action scenes, and there's a couple that I don't think are that good. I think it goes too big at one point with the plane. I thought that was pretty bad.
I didn't think it was bad. Like, I found myself like a little bit of white knuckled during the scene. I did think it was a lot.
It's just so excessive.
Clearly trying to one up itself.
Yeah, it's just so excessive. Everything has to be, and credit where credit's due. There is some. It does can maybe follow the structure a little bit too closely, because I complained in both 3 and Genesis about this, but it does that thing where it kind of mimics the structure of T2, where when the Terminator and the hero find each other, it's immediately followed by a very similar like chase where the evil Terminator's in a big like vehicle, right? And then the hero's in like a small car or bike or whatever, and it's this very similar kind of dynamic, and they were definitely doing that, and it kind of can't help but reference the old movies a lot. And don't get me wrong, some of them work really well, and the best references to old material in the original films are the ones that tell us something about how things have changed. But then there's ones where, that song from the bar from T2 is just playing randomly at one point, and it's like, okay, we've referenced them too much now. Stop it. This is one too many. Or they have Linda say, "I'll be back," and as her second line of freaking dialogue. And the worst part of that moment is that if that had came later when she was like really doing something badass, it might have worked. But she literally just walks away for a minute, and then they steal her car, and she's like, "Shit," and she runs back up the hill, and I'm like, she didn't even do anything. She didn't even do anything cool after she said it.
Yeah.
Like, so
we didn't get "Come With Me If You Want to Live" exactly. I thought that was very bold of them.
It was bold of them.
What a very,
that's fair.
What a very brave move of the writers and directors to not go with "Come With Me If You Want to Live."
So I'll tell you other things I liked. I liked that Rev 9, the villainous Terminator,
he's cool.
played by his name's not high up on the list.
Gabriel
Lunas. Yeah, he's from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 4. I know him from that. So I like the actor anyway.
Yeah, he's Ghost Rider, right?
Yeah.
I didn't watch it, but I think I heard that he was a standout of the series.
Yeah, he was good in that, and he's pretty good. I think the script does a disservice to him a little bit in that they kind of not outsmart him, but they kind of outgun him so much that he stops he kind of loses his menace a little bit. But what I will give them credit for is they never played him for laughs. They never did any stupid humor with him. They at least treated him like he was menacing, even though I think he lost his menace via other problems in the script. But he never lost it because they were trying to make him be funny or light or whatever. Like, even though they show that he has more of a personality to infiltrate, it never felt like funny or anything like that. It felt like, no, this is malicious because he's manipulating people. He's like tricking them into lulling their senses or whatever. It's an evolution of what like the T-1000 could do a little bit of. So that's kind of cool. Another thing I really liked is that the heroes were all vulnerable. Every one of them felt like they could be beat for the most part. I like that Grace, like, even though she is kind of this badass, she had weaknesses. She wasn't like just superhuman.
She has rules that she has to follow throughout, and the movie stuck with them.
For the most part, I think there's like again one moment in the plane sequence where they maybe went a bit too far with like what she can take.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a minor thing, but I just, it stuck out to me. It's like, okay, I've liked the parameters of what she can do so far, but this feels a bit we're going for the big ridiculous CGI moment, and we have to do this. But I like that. I like Danny. They did a good job, and I think one of the things I liked about the start, because I think there's some pacing issues early on, because I think the first like 15-20 minutes are paced really well, but I think it gets to that, so again, I'll compare it to T2 to just sort of say it without spoiling anything. That moment in T2 where the Terminator and T-1000 meet in the hallway with John Connor, right? That moment, the equivalent of that moment in this happens too soon. When it happened, I was like, we're doing this already? We've not built up enough to this. Like, I felt like we'd been shortchanged in the build-up, because everything before this, like seeing Danny like go home to her brother, introduce him, meet her father, I felt like I was getting to know her. I was starting to like her. It was really giving her that Sarah Connor treatment. Here's this normal girl who's, strong and smart in other ways, but she's not a fighter. She's not like some Rambo chick.
No, but she's clearly coming off as a leader and someone who will step up for people.
Yeah, she looks after her father. She's kind of the responsible one in the house. She's likable. She cares about them. It's giving you this idea of who she is, and she's friendly.
She stands up for her brother at work also. Like, I liked her.
It's doing these things, and it's making her likable.
And I thought it did a really good job of making me care about those side characters too, because things happen to people in the movie, and I got a little emotional about it.
Yeah, no, I think it handles that stuff well, and it is worth mentioning that this movie is, I was saying that the first 15-20 minutes is kind of almost perfect. It's kind of funny that that's the 15-20 minutes that has neither Linda Hamilton or Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. Like, this is just the new characters, and it's almost once they have to start rushing through the action stuff that it kind of maybe loses its pacing a little bit for me, in some ways.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree.
Which is not to say that action scene isn't good, because the action itself is pretty exciting, and
Yeah, especially the chase. I mean, I know we've seen it
yeah.
in every Terminator film, but I mean, it is a formula that works.
I mean, what I like about it is it really shows off kind of how the Rev 9 works, and especially I
And Mackenzie Davis's character, Grace.
yeah, and one of my favorite things about the Rev 9 though is because we see in the trailer, this is not a spoiler, that he can separate the liquid metal part to into another body. It's just liquid metal like the T1000, and the original skeleton is also operating on its own. So there's like two of them. Every time he reforms with himself, I love that every time. Every time he like just sort of like absorbed his skeleton again, I was into it. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Because he would do it like mid-run, or he would do it like well, in the middle of an action scene. It just looked really cool. I was into it every time.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, he was very cool.
yeah, I dug that. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about some. We can't talk about all of this yet because some of it is spoilers again. But let's talk about how ballsy this movie is in terms of its politics. Because this movie starts off in Mexico. The main characters, the main character is Mexican, and like she's a pivotal part of this movie. And half of this film takes place in Mexico, and there is several scenes where characters are speaking in Spanish with subtitles, and I applaud that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too. I really liked it. I mean, Mexico is part of the canon in Terminator also. That's Linda
true.
Hamilton.
But
Sarah Connor's very comfortable there.
But that's the thing. It's also again, I can't talk about all this until we get to spoilers. But it's also very feminist, and it has
Very.
something. It has something to say, which is something that the last few movies did not. The last few movies had nothing to say.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I think this movie is at its best when it's introducing new ideas, and it's almost shackling itself to referencing the old movies is kind of a problem. And I actually have some ideas with how I would have spread it out maybe a little bit. I might have saved Arnold for the second film, if assuming we get one, which is not making a lot of money, so probably not. But
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
It's a shame because I thought people would go see this too. I think everyone's just going to see Joker again.
No, Joe, no, it's not
Why?
that. No, Tara, it's not that. It's because if you put out 3 shitty sequels in a row, it doesn't matter how good the next one is. They're just not going to go see it. This is burning
Yeah,
your
I
audience.
But the trailers were really good.
Like it's not the films that suck that get penalized. It's the films that come after, no matter how good or bad they are.
Yeah. Well,
So
take note, producers and directors. Make a good movie the first time.
well, it was that simple. It was that simple.
Hire me.
So yeah, like I think it has some problems there, but like I do like the new characters, and I do like a lot of the action, and I like a lot of the ideas, and I can't talk about any of them until we get to spoilers, but it does have a lot of good qualities, has a lot of good ideas and a lot of good qualities. It does suffer from not having a James Cameron or someone of the caliber of James Cameron directing it. It definitely felt like
Yeah.
a lesser movie, just on a pure craft level because of that. There's some choices here or there where I went, oh, that was just a bit generic looking. Like if this was Cameron or someone else, like that could have been like a moment, that could have been like a memorable.
Yeah, we brought up the special effects. There's just something about like the movement of the Terminator and of Grace, like when that it just looks cartoonish sometimes, and
Yeah.
it really takes me out. I don't need it to be like if you can't make it work with practical effects, like a fight scene with practical effects, then like why do you have to make everything CG? Because it's not going to work. Like
Well, that's because
it's something so unnatural about the movement of it that is. I don't know. Like I didn't like it.
this goes back to the problem of like the big plane scene is like it has to keep escalating, they have to keep going bigger, so it has to be more and more CG, and it's like no, like so some of the best scenes like the reason why Terminator 1 and 2 have barely aged as far as I'm concerned is that some of the most intense stuff is just really intimate, like tense action. Like it doesn't have to be this big like blockbuster. Like this movie cost like $180 million to make. You could have made it for half that. You could have toned down some of those action scenes and made a better movie out of it, and it'd have
Yeah,
been much cheaper.
mean, what Mackenzie Davis like went through her transformation to become this character, she is a badass, and I would have loved to have seen her like fight toe to toe with the Rev 9, but instead we just get this like CGI mess. I mean, and some of the scenes are great. and some of the scenes are just in the same fight are just like, ugh, that's
Yeah.
part of the same movie. And yeah, unfortunately, that's just still there. It's part
Mm.
of all the sequels, and it's still here now, and it sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's funny because this was cheaper than the last one, I think, but it's still a very
yeah, I think
expensive
so.
movie. Um,
And I think you sort of brought it up before, but like, I just wish that they trusted us to get the message without anybody just saying it directly to
sure,
the audience.
yeah. Well,
What this is, what we're doing. Like, I think that happens a lot. I think it would be an okay not to get like to watch it through the acting rather than people just say what they're thinking.
yeah, there's a couple of lines that are a bit too much that kind of over-explain it, but I kind of got what it was doing
Yeah.
before then. There's a reveal like 2/3 out of the movie that I really like. It's a really simple little thing, but it really sets up kind of a big statement that the movie's making, and I think it's really
Hmm.
really nice. Um, so no, I mean, so the direction is not amazing. The direction's like it's okay and a lot of it, but then some of the action scenes I think it gets too muddy. Like I thought there was parts of that plane stuff that was just unintelligible. It was just cutting around too quick. I wasn't really following exactly where characters were at any given point, and it just felt a bit too big and silly for me to really get into it. But here's something that I do
Hmm.
love about the movie, right? Something that they did try to change a little bit, and I don't think they do enough of it. Again, much like a lot of the other ideas, I feel like they had to give it more time and more of it. But I love that there's an attitude in this movie from about like not even that far into it. It's kind of like maybe like 40 minutes into the 2 hour movie. Like instead of wanting to run, like the main character turns around and says, "Okay, how do we kill it?" Right?
Hmm.
Because if you think of Terminator 1 and 2, at no point, like other than saying, can it be killed, and then whoever's from the future says, no, it can't be killed, probably not, and they just keep running. There's never a plan to like. Whereas here it's like, no, let's be proactive. Let's make up a kill box. Let's get the right weapons.
Yeah.
Let's form a plan and take this asshole out. Like, and I'm like, yes, this is different. Yes, have them proactively try and trap a Terminator or try and kill a Terminator. This is
Hmm.
really fun stuff. And I don't think they actually devote that much to it. Like they kind of just stumble into it eventually, anyway. but
Yeah.
um, but at least I like
No, you're right.
the thought process coming up because it was like, okay, this is different. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all we can really say before we really dive into spoilers because we're going to work through this whole thing. We're going to go through it, so we will dive into spoilers from henceforth. Before we do though, Tara will tell you how you can support us.
Well, you can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MalFuzTV. You can donate as little as $1 per month, and that dollar gets you bonus episodes of the Ace, including we're working our way through the transfer films. So if you enjoy epic science fiction sagas from the 80s and 90s, yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I can't sell it better than that myself. That's what it is. So, movie starts with a bold choice. They intersplice the videotape of Sarah Connor from T2 talking to Silberman
Mhm.
in between
Everything you know is gone.
everything, you, me, him, everything. Anyone who's not wearing 10 million sunblock's gonna have a real bad day. Get it? I've seen that movie a lot.
Yeah, she's great.
We have this great because the opening to the future stuff as there's some narration which I knew as soon as it started like, oh, Tara's going to hate this because she hated it in all of them. But you knew they were going to do it. You knew they were going to have Sarah Connor narrate at the start to like match T2.
Yep.
It was always going to happen. But we get like there's just this, it's a beach, it's a close up of the beach, right, and the water's like coming in and out, and it's like slowly revealing like something under the sand, and after a couple of times you can start, is that a skull? And then it sort of clicked and I was like, oh, we're in the future. We're in the
that's
future.
cool.
And then the camera pulls it up and back, and eventually you see like, the T-800s coming out of the water, just blasting. They're just walking out. It's as if they've been walking across the seabed, like they've just been walking from like another island and just come in.
Yeah.
And it does this beautiful transition after we see just again the hunter killers that are flying around look like the hunter killers from T1 and 2. Just
Yep.
then over design them.
HKs.
HKs, yep. And there's this great transition where like this Terminator like sees a little girl and like points its big laser rifle at it, and then it like flashes to the, because this is it flashes to 1998, and it's the same place. It's the same place, and this same little girl is like actually still just like there playing on the beach, and we get some de-age in here because we see Sarah Connor, and again, this really murkies up exactly when T2 is set, because we were like, is it like a year before Judgment Day? Is it like early 97? I don't know. But this is 1998, and they look the same age. So Sarah Connor's sitting there looking like T2 Sarah Connor. John Connor, and this is the Edward Furlong cameo, although he's not really him, is kid John Connor looking the same age. He's getting a drink at the bar. He's all happy. She's all happy. She saved her boy. They're okay.
He's kind of flirting with the girl.
Yeah, and then in walks de-aged Arnold with the sunglasses on, and it kills John Connor right there and then. And Sarah comes running in and is like crying, and Arnold just walks away. His job's done. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot, because there's a reaction to this online, and I can't really argue with it too much, that it kind of just shits all over T2, because it just takes it and throws it away.
I guess, but I mean, like you've already said, already feels so far removed from those first two films. Like, just with time, I mean, maybe if 10 years from now, and someone's a kid who's finally able to watch the Terminator franchise and just goes with 1, 2, and what is this, 6? 1, 2, 6, and watches them that way, maybe.
Well, any good parents will be like, no, it goes just straight to Dark Fate. There's no other movies in between.
Yeah,
go straight to Dark Fate. But like, like
I can see that, but at the same time, like, it doesn't really bother me, to be honest.
But I'll tell you this though, if this was actually Terminator 3 that came out when I was like 13 or whatever age I was. This opening probably would have made me livid. Like, it probably would have absolutely infuriated me. As it is though, because I came into this expecting John Connor. I mean, I was expecting him to be an adult, right? And like he was going to get killed to prove that the future changed. Yeah, you were calling
that he would die in the first 15 minutes.
I'll take the points.
Yeah,
I'll take them.
Congratulations.
But because I was thinking in that way, I was thinking about how this changes the plot and how we're doing something different. It also kind of like sets up, okay, how there's another Arnold again, once again, right? We'll get to the Arnold side though when we get to Arnold. I don't want to talk about him yet because that he comes later. He comes later, right?
Okay.
De-aged Arnold looks good though. He looks like T2 Arnold. Cool.
Yeah, it looks good.
Right. So it looks very visually impressive. And I think because I was expecting John Connor to die, even though I wasn't expecting it to be young John Connor, like right after T2, because I was going in expecting it, it didn't hurt me when it happened. I was like, okay, here's the moment, and this sets up that things have changed and things are different. And here's the thing.
I guess it doesn't matter so much that he's dead now because of the events of T2 anyway. Like, the way they end, they stop Judgment Day. So
well, yeah, but
he doesn't need to grow up to be a leader. So whatever, he's dead now.
Well, no, it still matters though, and to the audience, because it's like killing you at the start of Alien 3. It's not about how important he is.
We love him.
It's about caring about him. Yeah, it's about caring about him. It's not about how useful he is in the future. It gives a shit. Like he, right? But it basically the excuse here, and again, this is one of these little convoluted things just to justify why there's a plot. Is like Skynet sent tons of Terminators back at the same time to different parts of the timeline, and this was the one that landed in 1998. And it's like, okay, fine, right? I'll roll with it, right? Because we have to have a movie, so I'll roll with it. But
yeah, we have to have an Arnold,
right? And this is why it's never going to be the same as T1 and 2 in terms of quality, because ultimately, no matter what, we have to convolute a way into a plot because we have to undo T2 every single time. So that's your big shock opening scene, and then we go to present day Mexico City. And we actually do the orb in a highway again, but this time it's like in the middle of the actual concrete. It's like in the middle of the road. And like Grace like falls out and like hits something and lands, and like this couple like come up to like Sarah's like, hey, are you okay? Like you fine? And these like corrupt policemen come up to them. I say corrupt because they're just kind of accusing. They're just immediately assuming they're criminals for some reason, and. It's like, hey, what happened here? Is she on drugs? Because Grace is kind of out of it, and then Grace kind of wakes up and like kicks the shit out of them. And simple little thing. it shows us that she isn't the Terminator of the two, because when she's checking to see if she like has the same size of shoes as this other guy, she walks up and puts her foot next to him, like next to his foot. It says, and that's when it's almost like a laugh moment, because it cuts to him in his underwear, like screaming at her, like, "Yeah, you bitch! You took my clothes. What are you doing?"
She always takes the men's clothes. I think that's interesting.
That's true. Well, I think that's because of the future she comes from. It's like no one cares about fashion. There's no women's clothes in the future. They're just
practical.
Yeah, it's not.
I think if this was a sequel in the 90s, she would have taken the hot women's clothes.
But it's not, because I think in the future it's not men's and women's clothes. It's just everyone wears the same thing. It's just the same. I guess the point is that men's clothes are just kind of the practical one usually. Typical thing.
Yeah.
Not always. I mean, you get assholes wearing all sorts of weird shit, but like a t-shirt is a t-shirt. And it'll fit. May not be as form fitting, but it'll fit everyone. So she's all tough, and she rides off, and she's looking for Danny, and we're interested in Danny. We're interested in her. She's getting food, and she's going home, and we meet her brother, who is like practicing for his test. He's learning English, so it establishes she can speak English, which is going to be important because she's going to be speaking to other characters later. But it shows us that she cares about him. She kind of like pulls him away from this girl he's trying to flirt with when they're leaving the apartment building, and all these little beats just give you a little bit of character. So here's something I liked, actually, is that Rev 9 actually lands in the middle of the apartment building. Like it's like the middle sort of courtyard area where all the washing is like been hung up, and he lands again kind of up high, and he falls down, but he lands like a Terminator. He like lands perfectly, like on his feet and his hands, like sort of in that crouch position. So two things I liked here. One, they actually programmed to land in the most likely place that she'll be. Obviously, she's just left, so he's just missed her. But this made sense. Like if you can program it to land next to her apartment, that's a good place to land.
Pretty good start.
Right, that's good. That made sense to me.
If only they knew her work hours.
I wonder if the time travel is like it's like approximate. They can only say it's within this 10-hour window or something like that. So maybe they can't be to the minute, kind of thing.
Right.
That's my headcanon. And then the other thing I liked here.
It's not a nitpick for me.
It's not. I mean, it's not a nitpick. I'm just joking. But like the other thing I liked here is that it actually kind of explains something that was never explained in T2. Because in T2, one of the things that I've always kind of brought up is not a nitpick or a plot hole, but just this idea that the T-1000, when he morphs into different people, he also morphs the clothes. And I always assumed he'd taken the police uniform from the cop at the start. But this,
you're right, yeah. That just crossed my mind too when I watched it.
Yeah, but this actually shows that no, he just touches the shirt that this woman's holding, and he like morphs the fabric around him. It's like, okay, he's just like people, because we know they can copy people by touching them. He makes contact with this shirt, and then he just has that shirt appear on him, like via the liquid metal. And I'm like, perfect. It's always been liquid metal. It's never been fabric.
Yep.
Easy peasy. Good job. You put some thought into that. And again, it shows you how like personable he is. He's pretending to be a friend of her when he talks to the dad and all the rest of it. And you almost get the impression that if it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to like mimic him when he went to see her, he'd probably just let the dad live. Because there's other parts of this movie where if he doesn't have to kill someone, he just kind of leaves them alone. Like,
yeah, if they're not a priority.
Yeah, he just kind of walks past some
the
people.
Terminator that we see come back that kills John does that too. Like Sarah's not on his priority list. He's just there for John. Like even though she's like clawing at him and trying to get him, he just walks right through her. Yeah,
well, I mean, John's born. Like she's not a priority anymore because like the birth thing's already happened. John already exists, so she's not as important in that sense. But I liked a couple of these details. There's just a little details here that I quite liked about him. Doing this, but so I said that I like all this stuff up until now, but it does kind of get to the moment where they meet a bit too quick for me, at the plant where they work, this factory, and we have this meeting where like he's disguised as the dad and he's walking up to her and he's going to shoot her, and it's just at this moment that Grace comes jumping in with the shotgun. What are you looking at?
Something on my keyboard that doesn't belong.
Okay. I was worried there was beasties or something like that. So but I mean, in the moment happens, and this is like one of these first moments where you said that the movement's kind of off. Like, see when Grace like swings this like sledgehammer at him, it just looks fake. Like the whole thing looks CG. The movement feels off.
Yeah, a little bit.
Uh,
I did like the scene though when she's like tearing him apart piece by piece,
oh
and you
sure,
could
yeah.
see like the skeleton underneath constantly.
Yeah, and he gets eventually crushed because Diego, Danny's brother, kind of like presses, and which is almost like a fun reference to the first movie because that's how
Hmm.
T-800 gets killed, and I was like, that won't kill him. We have to go. We have to go. And they're like, what are we talking about? It's like, we have to go. Come on now. Um, and this is where the big car chase like happens, and he's she's throwing rebar at him. The vehicle's like slowing down because it's running out of fuel, so she has to try and like slow him down somehow so they can get away. And they get kind of cornered. Diego gets killed. Like he gets rebarred first of all, and then the car explodes. And it's kind of and we kind of did this in Terminator 1 to an extent, where Linda's roommate got killed, but it was kind of just this after the fact thing where she didn't really like experience it. We saw it, but she didn't. Whereas this was like really kind of like tragic. She actually saw her brother just like explode.
Yeah, it got to me. I got emotional during the scene. I
Yeah.
like Diego. I mean, we had enough of his character and their relationship for me to go, oh, that's too
Yeah,
bad.
it was just enough. Like
Yeah,
any less, it probably wouldn't have worked. But it was just enough to make it feel like it mattered a little bit.
yeah,
So yeah, that was good. And obviously, Linda Hamilton shows up just in the nick of time, and they're probably going to get killed with a giant shotgun and grenade launcher, and that's fine. But we have to talk about the "I'll be back." Like she says it for no reason, and I'm okay with giving her that line. I actually it oddly kind of worked in Salvation with Christian Bale, so I think you can like give it to someone else. Although that said, Arnold has his own variation of it later, which I think works much better and has more impact. So
we didn't
this,
really need it from
yeah,
Linda Hamilton.
this felt kind
From
of
Sarah
cheesy.
Connor.
Yeah, this felt like a cheesy little add-on, just for like this felt like the unnecessary fan service kind of moment to me.
Yeah, you kind of. I think they were hoping for an audience cheer moment.
Yeah, it was too soon. It was too soon. And I think one of the complaints I have to levy at this movie, as far as Sarah Connor goes, is that while I like seeing her, and she does feel kind of like right in a lot of ways because she feels like Sarah Connor has not changed in 30 years. And because they're scared to evolve her because they want her to be the Sarah Connor we all remember. But part of the reason why Sarah Connor in T2 was so great is because she'd evolved so much from T1. Like they took what happened to her in T1 and evolved it to a natural place in T2. And I feel like and while it's nice to see her and she does feel on point, it is very much here's the nostalgia version of Sarah Connor because T2 never even brought a lot of the music back from T1. Like Arnold's theme was different, but when we see Arnold in this movie again, it's the T2 Arnold theme that plays. The metal hitting the drum or whatever it is. The dan like it's that again because we want nostalgia for T2. We want to make you feel like that movie again. But T2 was never concerned remotely about saying, hey, we have to like make you feel nostalgia for T1, right? There's like one line that calls back to it, the come with me if you want to live. And that's maybe I'll be back, but I mean by that point I'll be back was like in every Arnold movie, so it didn't really feel like a T1 reference.
It's true.
So like
he says it in the Christmas movie also. To go all the way.
It does. He says it in tons of stuff. He says it in everything.
Yeah.
But so there is definitely examples throughout this of the nostalgia stuff like being forced in that feels a little bit like, oh, we have to do this because it's a Terminator movie. And
they put in some kind of a plot thing to make you be like, okay, then I guess that's why she's still this type of Sarah Connor. She's still ready at all times to fight a Terminator because she gets these, messages. So she knows that they're coming back constantly, and she never knows when she'll have to fight one. So we have to keep Sarah Connor from Terminator 2 at all times.
My God. Yeah.
It's okay. I do. I like seeing her in here. I like that we have Sarah Connor back, but I agree there are some cringe moments, and most of them come from her. But it's not her fault. It's just the script.
Yeah, it's just I'm blaming Linda Hamilton. I'm saying that they just put
no. She's awesome.
There's a weird.
She's got some great back and forth with Arnold later on, and even with the new characters.
Oh yeah, no, she has some great sort of like arguments with Grace because she's really jaded and cynical, and she's like, okay, tell me where you're from, what's going on, like what are you, explain yourself, blah 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 blah. Although there was one thing like that really bugged me. There was it was kind of a joke where she keeps her phone in like an empty like potato chip bag because the foil blocks the signal, so she can't be tracked. And that was fine. But then when she's like sort of prodded to ask why like this, and she's like, "Well, I really like potato chips," and I'm like, that felt like so un-Sarah Connor. Like, what? I really like potato chips. I just felt like
I guess, and she doesn't really talk about things she likes.
I know. It just felt.
She likes guns and cigarettes and her boy.
So that was weird. That was a weird choice, but so she actually, I was going to say they're together now, but they're not really because they steal her car. They don't trust Sarah Connor yet, so Grace and Danny steal the car, and they actually establish that Danny can't drive, which now that I'm thinking about it, does actually is there for a reason. Actually, there's a small point at the end that kind of I'll get to that when we get to the ending, but I'll just mention it now. But it almost felt like it was again for comedy here because she sort of starts the car and she's like, I'll just do it anyway, and she kind of like stalls it a little bit, and it's, you know, a bit ricky. Honestly, she parked a lot better than I thought someone who'd never driven a car before would park when she stops at the pharmacy.
I guess parking's not that difficult unless you have to parallel park.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like she should have hit something or something. Like, you know, hit the fire hydrant or something and be like, a
sprinkler system and
yes,
water starts shooting out. Yeah.
Yes, I'm half joking, but
someone says, "My car."
But they set up this thing where Grace is augmented, right? That's what we find out, is that she's been enhanced. She's still a human. She volunteered for this. I like the volunteering element because it does make you think of Kyle. Right,
mm-hmm.
It makes you think of that. But they set up this idea that like her metabolism like goes through a lot, and she's not really designed to last a long time. Like, so they have to get her these meds, and I kind of like the desperation in this scene where like they're on the run from this Rev 9, this unstoppable Terminator, and they have to like stop and do this because otherwise like she's just dead in the water. Like she can't do anything. Yeah. So I kind of like that part of it. And this was really the first moment where Danny, well, I mean, it's not really the first, because the first moment's where she's going to go to the cops, and like basically, Grace has to convince her that the cops can't help you. Like if you stand behind 800 cops, all that's going to happen is 800 dead cops. Like that is like, mm-hmm. And we see the first movie, we know that's true. We've seen this in practice, and she makes the choice. But I think the real choice though comes when she passes out, and the people who are in the pharmacy who were scared of her because she was waving a gun around, like one of them goes for the gun, and Danny makes the choice to die for the gun and sort of like continue this quote unquote stick up so that she can get her out of there. And that's kind of the moment. And like Sarah Connor's just out there when they get outside, and again, it's kind of meant to be this joke moment where, you know, she's just really good at what she does, kind of thing.
Sure. So
that was that. But this is where it kind of slows down a little bit, and we get the, okay, who are you? You know, what do you do? Why are you here? And like, they killed my son John. Terminators come back like every couple of years, and I get a text message saying, hey, what, you know, and presumably all the ones she's fought up until now are all just other Arnolds, or at least are Terminators from his future. You know, they all get sent back around that same time. This seems to be like a new thing, this Rev 9 to her and all that. And I think this is where we probably neatly go into the new mythology, where we find out that the future is completely different. We find out
there is no Cyberdyne, there's no Skynet.
No Skynet, because she says Skynet sent him back, and she's like, what the hell's Skynet? What are you talking about? And we find out about Legion, which is the new computer system that rises up. And it happens in... Well, it must happen relatively soon, actually, because Grace is a kid. We see her at the end, like, and she's not that far from what her age is in the flashbacks when we see...
I think they said 4 years from now. But she is from, like, she went back in time from, like, 2040 something.
Well, that makes sense, because she's an adult. She's grown up.
Yeah, it's like 2042. But I think she said it was 4 years from now when the machines rise.
So she's probably, say, like, somewhere between 10 and 12 when everything goes down. So she's, like, what, 4 years from now is 20... Yeah, she's another, you know, but 32 or something like that. I don't know, whatever age she is. And... it sets up this idea that it's not quite nukes immediately. It kind of sets up this more slow rollout, by the sounds of it, where people were sort of panicking and realizing things were happening. I like that because it's kind of separated it. And I don't really like how the Terminators in this new future look. I have to say, I don't like the whole spidery thing that we see in one of the flashbacks.
Sure, but it makes sense that they would look different because they're not developed by...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that I at least like there's an attempt to there's a reason why it's like, well, because one of the things with Terminator Salvation is technically that this is a future that happens later than the original future, so there's a reason why it might be a little bit different, but it's never really a dramatic point. This movie goes out of its way to say no, this is a completely different future that happens for different reasons, with different saviors, different machines, different everything. The Terminators that we know, like Arnold as a Terminator, is the last of his kind, because that kind is not invented in the future anymore. It's this different kind. If anything, the complaint I would then have is that the Rev 9 and his skeleton, while it's different, is it probably still too close to what we think of as a Terminator, just because it has to look like a Terminator for us.
Yes, I agree. Like, okay, like there's a new company with a new AI, I should say, and a new threat, but they developed the exact same way as the old one did. The same plans, the same time travel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To his credit, though, I don't think Grace calls them Terminators. I think Lynn, or Sarah calls them that.
I think so too.
It kind of catches on, so I appreciate that, at least, that they didn't call them Terminators in this future. However, no, I think she did actually, because when she's in the car, she says that if you don't kill the Terminator within the first few minutes, you're probably dead. Which, by the way, that goes against everything we've ever seen. Every Terminator ever has taken ages to kill. Just FYI. But
yes.
So I think she actually does use the terminology, that I'm thinking about it.
Maybe. I can't remember if she said Terminator or like machine. Or
that said, though, it makes sense, actually. I've got a reason why it makes sense she uses Terminator. I'll get to that later, because there's a line later on that I almost hated and then realised why it makes sense and then loved it. So I'm going to get to that later. But
okay.
Be excited. So yeah, we learn all this stuff, and we see, and I don't remember exactly when these flashbacks take place in the timeline, so I'm just going to talk about them now. Where we see like young Grace, like we're in that kind of like a post-apocalyptic world where there's like it looks like these like thugs are going to like steal what little food she's got left. Like it seems like food shortages are a big reason why things go to shit in the world, and we see her getting attacked, and it kind of hints that whoever the savior is going to like jump out and save her, right? And we're all thinking, okay, she's going to have a kid, right? Who's going to be, Danny, that is going to have a kid in the future, and that's going to be the whole thing. We'll get to that reveal later. But we see like a flashback where she's, in the war again. She's on like a drop ship with all these other soldiers, and they have this attack, and we have this like sort of Terminator that's got these big. It's almost like if you think of like Spider-Man's like iron suit that has the like extra legs. It kind of reminded me of that, where it's like a Terminator skeleton that has these extra liquid metal legs that it's kind of stabbing people with.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Doc Ock design.
Yeah, same kind of thing. Yeah, I had kind of that going for it, and they're trying to save their commander, who we don't really see properly because they've got like a mask on and like they're, the breather and all the rest of it. But it ends with her volunteering. She's like, yeah, I volunteer, because she's like, it reminded me of RoboCop actually, because she gets kind of messed up, Grace. And it's because she's so messed up. She's like, I volunteer for the enhancements. This idea that she's only been enhanced because her body's already so messed up that, okay, let's chance it. We don't know if this is going to work. Let's build a RoboCop out of her. Essentially, this is the closest we're getting to RoboCop vs Terminator anytime soon. So
I guess so.
That's
all right. I don't need any more RoboCops, even though I know we're getting them.
Yes. Who knows? There's that small chance it'll be the Rise of the Planet of the Apes of RoboCop. And it could be amazing. So
you're right.
There's that small chance. But no, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't like this future as much as the original one. I don't like how it looks as much. It looks better than the futures from the last few movies. I don't.
It looks a little Salvation to me, but I think it's okay.
I think it's better shot. It felt more intimidating to me than Salvation. Felt more like a horror movie, I guess, which is what I like about it. But I don't like the design of the things as much as I do the original future. I don't like the name Legion that much. But I think the idea of, if we're doing this and creating it separate, it shouldn't be Skynet anymore. It should be something different. It should be.
Yeah, it makes sense that it's a different. Yeah, a different AI.
And if this is for the most part a swan song to the original movies, and I mean, obviously Linda Hamilton, if we do get another one, will probably be back, but Arnold shouldn't be. This is Arnold's bye-bye, and he is the Han Solo of this Terminator Force Awakens.
I suppose that's true. I really wish he wasn't in it.
Sarah's the Leia. John, I guess, is the Luke. He's only got like a 5 seconds of screen time. Danny's Ray, which makes Grace kind of Finn,
Obi-Wan?
I guess. Obi-Wan wasn't in Force Awakens.
No. I don't like this analogy.
You can't deny there's some parallels.
I mean, yeah, they're trying to bring back a franchise and please fans while bringing in new actors.
And the way the characters are used.
I'm passing the baton.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the way the characters are used. The fact that, you know, the old man, like Terminator, like dies and like, goes out and like, sort of. I mean, okay, Han didn't really get sacrificed to this, but you know, like there's definitely some parallels.
Like Arnold dies in all of them.
I mean, that's true, but I don't know the way it worked in this. I don't know. Like I was feeling the parallels. Anyway, so okay, we've set all this stuff up, and we set up this mystery of who's sending these texts. So here's my idea for Arnold. I actually think they should have not had Arnold in this movie, and had him in the second movie. Like have him at the end. Have the reveal be that this guy sending the text is the Terminator who killed John, right? And have that almost be your cliffhanger, or your mid-credit scene. And the reason why I say that... Why do you like
this idea, though?
Sorry?
Why do you like this idea of what the T-101 has become?
Now, I don't necessarily love everything that he's become, but I think the reason why I don't love everything that he's become is because we don't see the evolution. I think the problem is that we have to see this journey. I think this could make a fantastic subplot, because if we're going to talk about it now, we'll talk about it now. The idea that what is a Terminator that's been sent back in time is completely disconnected from his system, you know, Skynet, the future, the hive mind, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
What does he do once he's completed his mission? That is something we've never seen happen. It's just a Terminator who succeeds. What then happens?
We know he can't kill himself, right? That's
because I think maybe even one of the earlier reviews I said, what happens? Do they just shut down and go to sleep and that's it? Like end of you know, unless he's woken up by Skynet someday, you know, when he's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Does he go to hibernate mode? Like, and I actually kind of love the idea of once he doesn't have a mission, he does actually observe, like any intelligent life, because we know he can learn, that he observes and grows a conscience over decades of observing. And now, do I like the fact that he has kind of a wife and a kid? I mean, like maybe not that much, but like
it's not physical.
But yeah, I hate that line. But that idea that he grows a conscience because he's able to, like, because the way I read this, right, because so much of this movie is about racism, it's about the treatment of immigrants, it's about ICE and all that. We have like a containment camp at one point where, you know, we've got crossing the border. There's a lot of that stuff built into this movie. I think there's a genuine attempt here, the idea being that his mission to kill someone is kind of like the hate that someone who's a bigot feels, right? And the idea that if you can remove that somehow, if you can take away that idea that's been programmed into them, because let's be honest, for a lot of people who feel that hate, it is programmed into them either by the media or parents or whoever, right? That if you can take that away, that's how you rehabilitate them. That is because then they see other people as human beings, they empathize, and they grow a conscience, and you know that's how you create. So I think there's something there. There's something tangible. I wish it spent more time exploring it, because I can see this story in my head. I can see how many times have we seen a great story, even Terminator 2 to an extent, although in a different way, does the robot grows a heart or grows a conscience, right? It's done in that because someone teaches him it, and someone like teaches him right from wrong. But
reprograms him.
But what about the idea of just him on his own, now that he's got nothing to do, starts to, you know, observe and learn.
A Terminator with nothing to terminate.
Yeah. What happens? I actually love that question. Now, do I love the fact that it's just kind of like thrown in this here? No. Do I like the jokes because he's married? No. That said, though, I did laugh out loud when he ended like his sentence. He had a little speech saying of why his wife likes him. He's like, she likes that I'm a good listener. She likes that I'm a father to her son, which kind of calls back to T2 because Sarah said that in one of her narration things. And then he just does a pause and then he says, I'm also really funny. Really deadpan. I have to admit, that was a funny joke. Like, that did make me laugh.
Yes.
And it might even...
That and the when he's explaining about the one trouble customer he had who wanted to put solid color sheets in a girl's room, and he goes, I said, don't do it.
No. I have to.
It was so threatening.
I have to correct one detail here because it was really funny to me. It's not sheets, it was drapes. He does drapes. He's a drape salesman and installer.
Right.
And he's like, don't do it. You do stars, or you do little rainbows, or so. He starts listing like pattern and designs.
Yes. I don't like the Terminator in this movie.
I
I
don't
don't
like
like it.
the played for humor. I hate
I
the
don't like the
the
I don't like
Texas
the
line.
storyline for it
I
because he is not a reprogrammed Terminator. I know what you're saying, and I think you said it very eloquently,
thank you.
and I understand. I don't care.
I see
I don't
the
like it in the movie. I think he doesn't come off as the first Terminator. Like he comes off as something that can grow and evolve, and
here's the
I
problem.
don't want that.
Here's the real problem. No, I do want growth and evolving. I do want those things. I think that
I
is a
think
great idea.
we get it in T2 because he's been reprogrammed to do that.
I like the idea of it just happening naturally because he's smart and he can learn. I think the problem with this movie, now I think it deserves a lot of time to explore it, but I think the one thing that would have fixed a lot of my problems in this movie with this, outside of maybe a little bit of the humor going too far, is that when he starts telling this story, show us it. Show us, give us the 5-10 minute short film showing him through the years, and show us him like, I can see him like sitting on a park bench doing nothing because he's got nothing to do. He's a Terminator. What does he want to do? It's 1999. He's not got anything to do. He's sitting on a bench and he's observing things. Like show us the story. Give us like, I can almost see the arty student film of just this story of like a Terminator like growing a conscience just by observing and how he becomes someone. I can see the Twilight Zone episode of this happening. I can see like all these different things exploring this idea. Just give us that. Like this is the one thing where you should have done a flashback and say, here's how it happened. And
You want like the under the skin episode of Arnold on I don't know in the 90s, like growing a conscience and all of a sudden giving a shit about humanity.
That's the other problem. Is I think the way he describes it, it sounds like it happened too quick. I think it should be told over years. It should be something that takes a lot of time. You know.
No, I don't think this is something. I don't think this is something that the Terminator that we get from the first film would ever go through.
That's fair. It doesn't feel like it fits the Terminator you saw. I'll accept that. I'll accept that and even agree with it. I think I like the core idea of a machine once its purpose has been removed, and it has the ability to learn what happens.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of a hopeful message in there. And I think I like the analogy that I made earlier about, removing someone's hateful programming and how they can become a better person after that. I like what it's doing, and I like the ideas. I don't think the execution's great. I think it needs the time to actually explore it, and it needs the time to actually sort of build up to it. But I do like the core idea.
Yeah. I guess. I just don't think you needed him. I don't think you need him in the movie. Like I think I think Arnold's there for fan service, and
no, he is. No, I agree with that, and that's why I'm saying give this more time, which is why I'm saying
if $20 million went to Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in the film, like you could have used that money to fix your special effects.
But this is why I'm saying, like, I like the idea, and it deserves more time. Save him for the second one. Have this be Linda Hamilton's movie. Right, or for the most part her movie, and let this next one be the Arnold kind of vehicle where he comes back, right, and show him, actually tell the story if you're going to do it, because I do think there's merit in the idea. I think there's some stuff in there, and we have skipped over a bunch of stuff though to get to Arnold, because they have to cross the border because they realize, okay, whoever's sending these texts is in Texas, and they get picked up and detained, and we get the Rev 9 like sort of like. There's one moment here where I wish they pulled the camera back, because the Rev 9, he's kind of like charging through like a bunch of like guys that he's like sort of fighting through, and he's just kind of like, you can kind of see it just briefly, but what he's actually doing is he's basically just doing lots of quick stabbing blades out of his back to like stab the people behind him, and I'm like, that's really cool. That's really vicious. Give me a wide shot of that so I can see it properly. That's really neat. Although it does beg the question later on, though, when he's close to anyone else, why doesn't he just like stab them from his stomach at any point? Like just stab them multiple times. Like, you've got the ability, you could do it.
Why are you not always just like a mace?
Yes, yes, like a porcupine.
Spiked mace.
Yes, just stabby. Do you know what he should look like? He should look like one of those. I mean, you don't get them that often now, but remember back in the end of the 90s, early 2000s, like those visualizers for music players were really popular.
Mm.
and you got all the spikes going.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you should just look at one of
Like,
those.
or like a sea urchin. Why does he not just look like a sea urchin?
Um, so, Grace wakes up and gets clothes and takes them because there was like doctors examining her and being baffled by everything. This kind of felt like a waste of time to me because we kind of already got the gist of what they'd done to her. We didn't really need to see it explained anymore. You
Yeah,
know, so that was whatever. But she
it
breaks
was a way to separate everybody.
yeah, she breaks everyone out and they get out. They get away in a helicopter, which is fine because I'm like, okay, you can't just fly, right?
I like that we get to see Sarah Connor like get herself out of the situation that seemed impossible
sure.
after they made fun of her age.
Yeah, because
I thought it was-
they established in T2 that she's going to be lockpicks and things like that. She knows what she's doing. Like we know she can break out. And I do kind of love that she's kind of notorious. Like she says at one point, "How are we going to cross the border with like an undocumented immigrant and me who's had my own America's Most Wanted episode?" Like I did actually. That was like a kind of a joke, but that was a joke that kind of worked for me. I'm like, okay, that's kind of
yeah, I agree.
I can get behind that joke. So they run off. So this was where the joke was. Where oh no, it wasn't quite here because there's a chase when they're in the. Is it in the helicopter? No, it must be later when he falls out into the cabin.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Because he falls into a shed and he says sorry about the shed and the song from T2 is playing. For some reason in my head, I think that's about here, but I don't know. I don't know what he falls from at this point. If it's from here,
I don't remember.
Like,
there's too many times where we go into the sky.
Yeah, there's too many times we go into the sky. I will say, see when they're trying to cross the border, I did like the visual of the drone having like the camera's a red eye, and it was intentionally kind of like making you think of the red eyes of the Terminators. It was like this is the present day Terminator. We're not quite there yet, but
I like seeing the Rev 9 like tap into everything too, because everything has a camera and he can find who he's looking for instantly.
Yeah, although I did
the machine able to tap into it.
I did question though why he had to go to like a mainframe to do that. I'm like, why can't he just do this wirelessly? Like, he has no Wi-Fi. Like, what's going on here?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, okay, actually, I'll maybe accept that because this is all like secured footage, because it's not like anyone could just go and look at some security camera footage. He has to actually go into somewhere that's like, get access to it. Like, it's not just like,
Shoot.
What?
Oh, I just remembered that I wanted to bring that up in the Watchmen review. The technology thing. Because they all use pagers.
That's true, yes, they have pagers. They also use CDs, I think, from the looks of it.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things I wanted to bring up. Like, oh, I guess, like, why are they afraid of technology? Is it because of Dr. Manhattan or whatever? Like,
note it down for next week. You could bring it up on episode 4 review.
Good edit that.
So, that's funny enough. I'm not going to find this one. So I like that little detail. It wasn't like it was like it wasn't. I won't going to say it was subtle, but it was a nice kind of parallel. It wasn't like super like, hey, look at this. It was just like a nice little like, hey, here's the present day version of a Terminator, this drone. Still man operated, of course, but I mean, for how long?
Dun, dun, dun.
For how long? Before the drone starts flying itself. So I like that little touch.
There's a movie about that that's pretty good, actually, called Eye in the Sky. Check it out one day, about drones.
Yeah, okay. I haven't seen it. I remember seeing the trailer.
Aaron Paul in it. And I think it's Alan Rickman's last movie.
Oh. So they get to Texas, they meet Arnold. Sarah's reaction to Arnold's interesting to me. Obviously, they do the thing where it's very reminiscent of him stepping out the elevator in T2. The music plays, she's sort of in shock.
Slow. She's kind of looking at him real slow and then has that reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. She does shoot him at one point, and it was when they're back in the house, actually. He's like, I'm going to have a hard time explaining this to whatever his wife's name is. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's pretty funny. But like, I did think it was weird how it just took like one emotional pep talk to kind of talk Sarah to go in to listen to him. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's still like very standoffish. She's still like making like remarks like, I'm never going to effing call you Carl or anything like that. But,
Yeah,
but,
Carl.
but even that line, I'm never going to effing call you Carl, I feel like it was played for a laugh. Like, I feel like it was maybe a funny line, and I didn't feel like I didn't want to feel humor when Sarah was sitting here facing the machine that killed her son. Like, because there's a moment later where she does call him Carl, and I saw that coming. As soon as she said that line, I'm like, okay, she's totally calling him Carl at the end of the movie. The two problems I have with this is, one, that I don't feel she's done enough with him to really like have the arc where she accepts him as being more human, and two, we already
she like barely accepts him by the end of T2.
Yeah, and two, we already did that arc in T2. We already did the thing where she accepted the machine as like growing as a maybe not a human, but as a being with feelings. By the end of T2, she had respect for it, or him. And that was kind of a really neat moment. So the kind of problem with this plot is that we kind of have to almost rehash that arc. We have to rehash her becoming respect for the Terminator. Because I think that's one of those moments at the end that I think I wished I loved, because I think if it had the build up to justify it, it would have been a great moment. But because it was like, you've not really earned this. Like, doesn't feel right. But another joke that I did kind of get into was the idea that Sarah's like, they'd all try to train Danny how to use a gun because she has to try to learn to defend herself, right? She has to be able to fight with them, and Terminator's going to join them out of like essentially redemption. Like, he wants to atone for John, so he's going to help them fight the Rev 9 and whatnot, and set up a kill box. And the first glimpse of who Danny really is kind of comes out, where she's like, no, we're not going to run. We're not going to run forever. We're going to turn around, because Sarah says, let's kill the thing, which I like that Sarah thinks like that now. She's not thinking about running, because I've ran from them before. It just leads to more misery. Let's just try and kill the son of a bitch. And Grace is like, no, we can't do that. And Danny's like, no, we have to kill it. This is stupid. We use me as bait and we kill it. That's the smart move. So that scene,
otherwise he's just gonna run forever.
Yeah, that's seen kind of who she is. And they're training her how to use weapons. And Sarah's like, no, enough with this pistol shit. Like, she hands her this giant ass shotgun and says, right, that bottle just killed your brother. What are you gonna do? And she just like hits every bottle like immediately. Realistic, probably not, but it felt like the Sarah Connor attitude. So
definitely,
I'll take it. So I will say I'm in two minds of an Arnold line that's coming up. It's better than the Sarah Connor version of it for sure, but when they're leaving to go do the thing, to go try and trap to go get the weapon, the EMP that they need to maybe potentially kill the Rev 9. Although I was wondering why Sarah at no point said, is there any steel mills nearby? Because that's definitely going to work.
Yeah, right.
use your experience here, Sarah. But Arnold's saying that he was telling his wife and stepson about how, okay, the day has come that he's passed his cut with them and that he's going to have to leave and yada yada yada. And he says, I told him this, I told him that, and the final thing he says is, I told him I won't be back. And I thought, okay, that was a good idea. A good idea. That line is a good. If this is his last outing, and he really means it this time, like, yeah, say I won't be back. That's pretty good. I wish the Sarah Connor one didn't happen, because it kind of it neuters it a little bit, because we already had a reference to that line. But okay, fine, right? We'll take it. So there is some contrived plot stuff here that I didn't like. Like, Sarah just happens to know a guy in the military who can get her an EMP, and then after they get attacked,
yeah, I kept thinking, like, okay, is he a character we know? Like, is he related to Dyson or something? Like, the son? But I guess not. Like,
maybe. I don't know. I guess maybe he could be Dyson. I never caught his name. I don't think he was called Dyson, though. I think
we would have noticed if he was called Dyson. But like, who owes her anything?
Yeah, that is the only character I could think of who would understand what she's fighting. Would be like someone from Dyson's family.
Me too. That's why I kind of made the connection.
But yeah, no, there was no indication. And not only that, though, not only does he have the authority to, or at least steal this EMP device, he also has the authority, once they get attacked and they have a bit of a chase, he gets shot, so he's kind of dying. And he has the authority, when they get to this military base, to just wave off the other guards and say, no, they have authority to take this giant plane that belongs to us. Yeah. Yes, they have the authority for this. Yeah. So I think it's actually here that the Rev 9 falls out of the sky and has the joke, but then he catches up and gets another plane.
Yeah,
So
I
we
think
get
you're right.
the big plane. But the big scene that happens though before they get attacked in the sky is the reveal of who Danny is. And I actually really like this. This is one of the movie's ideas that I mean, I like the idea of the Terminator stuff in theory if it was done right. But you can take all that out because the great idea of this movie, the emotion that kind of works for me is that this movie's saying, no, it's not a guy. It's not your son. It's you. You're the leader of the resistance. It's not someone in the future. It's you yourself who is going to stand up and fight. It's a woman. It's not even an American. Right? It's a Mexican woman who's going to be the savior of humanity. And there was a line in this scene that almost really upset me. Because Grace turns to her and says, no, you've trained me, you saved me, you taught us how to fight, you got everyone together. And you know, it lines up with some things we've seen with Danny's personality that she does do this, right? She has a bit of a leader, she does want to fight, and she is smart and tactical. It sets those things up. But there's a moment here where Grace says to her, you used to always tell me that there is no fate but what we make. And I almost really cringed. And it cut to Sarah, and Sarah kind of gave her this look like, that's weird. Like, she said that. And I went, oh, okay, I like this. And I'll tell you why I like it. Because at first I took it as, oh, we're forcing that line then. Oh, shit, it just happened to be a line she also heard. But then I got what it was doing. It's setting up that Sarah's going to train her. Sarah's going to be the one that trains her, and the reason why she said that line to Grace is because she heard it from Sarah, which is why, in retrospect, now that I'm thinking about it, it's okay that Grace calls it a Terminator because it's Sarah who calls it that. It's Sarah who taught Danny that name, who's then taught it to everyone else.
But you're right.
Boom!
I mean, I make the connection that Sarah trains her, but I didn't make a connection to those lines of dialogue. But you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's
self-fulfilling. The reason why they have those lines and those names is because Sarah is the one that names them. It's beautiful. It's the causality loop again. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a problem in this movie where it's saying that even though this future that sent Arnold back and sent the T-1000 back doesn't exist anymore, technically that means that Kyle Reese never exists anymore. Like all the conversations we ever had about like the loop is kind of broken because now it's like, no, everything that they sent back in time is still here, but that future doesn't exist anymore. Like, okay, whatever.
I mean, doesn't that kind of happen with T2?
Well, no, because they destroy everything, right? Like, that's the whole point, is that they destroy everything so that future can't happen.
Right, so Kyle Reese doesn't go back in time.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay, sure, yeah. So technically John... Okay, yeah, okay. I guess technically that was already true then, is that the things that were there stuck around.
It fits with the canon of...
Actually, technically...
of these rules.
Technically then, the real dark ending to T2 should have been, after they killed the Terminator, Sarah should have told her, well, there's one more thing we have to kill. You shouldn't exist. It just pushes them in the molten metal.
Yeah, right?
Alright, done job. Everything in the future's gone. That was future seed. That was future sperm. Therefore, John Connor must die.
Yep. Or he just fades away.
That's actually pretty funny.
Glad you're enjoying yourself.
I'm enjoying myself. Are you not? Is this miserable for you?
Oh, no, it's good. It's just late.
So the Rev 9 attacks. We have this ridiculous action scene. I didn't like it in the trailer. I don't like it here where they're dangling, like Grace is dangling from the Humvee that's got a parachute. The whole thing's just really silly and over the top for me.
Yeah, it's a ride.
I will say this as well. Like, again, going back to like they have to copy things from the previous ones is like, does Arnold have to lose his arm like every time? Like
every single time.
What the hell?
It's always the same thing. It's always his arm gets exposed.
Part of his face. Like, it's always...
And part of his face.
I rolled my eyes.
One eye.
When his arm get ripped off, I'm like, oh, seriously? Like, Genesis did this. You know, 3 kind of did the arm thing. 2 definitely did the arm thing.
Yeah, definitely did.
Like, absolute nonsense, the whole thing. What comes after, though, I mostly like. I do think a couple of the moments in the finale are unearned. But I do like the theory behind them and like the moment themselves, right? And what really helps, of course, is, you know, when Arnold appears again, because like they're trying to like, get into this dam, because they've all kind of landed in the water, and Grace can barely walk. But Arnold shows up. He kind of slides down. He actually jumps down. He jumps off the top of the dam and lands at this bit at the bottom. It's a really kind of a badass entrance. And when he walks up, you just hear the do 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 do.
Yeah.
Like, you hear oh yes, they're teasing the theme now. Oh yes, we're getting there. And he hands the syringe because Grace made a couple of syringes of all the medical supplies they had. She made because assuming there's some sort of concoction she has to make with like 3 or 4 things. She made like 2 syringes for later.
Yeah, something with insulin and adrenaline or something. Yeah.
So Arnold gives her the last syringe, and he's able to, because Grace can't rip off the door because her strength is gone, so he rips off the door, and they go in, and again, I mean, this is again reminiscent of Terminator in the sense that we always have to end in an industrial style place, but that doesn't bother me as much because
I don't mind.
Yeah, that feels more
we're
like,
fighting an industrial thing.
Yeah, it feels more like an aesthetic choice that is consistent rather than like a specific we have to do the truck chase again, but. We have this fight, and there's lots of moments in this fight that I really, really like. I
love the spinning chain.
The spinning chain is great. Arnold fighting the Rev 9 is great. Rev 9 trying to just talk them into giving her up. I actually kind of like I like that's a tactic. Like he's programmed to do that. Like, oh, just give it to, and and again, this is like one of the first moments where it's almost like Sarah's accepted that Arnold has evolved. Because he says, why not just hand her over? And she says, because we're not effing machines. And she kind of includes Arnold in that almost, because he's standing with them.
With his machine arm out.
Yeah. I did actually, someone referred to this scene as Arnold's Angels, because it's him and 3 women standing there. That can be a chuckle.
That's funny, yeah.
So they have this fight, and I mean, it was all a bit ill-prepped because Danny's like, no, let's just stand our ground. This is our kill box, right? And because that was the other hint that Sarah was going to train her, because earlier on she uses the phrase kill box, and Danny kind of learns it from her. But she's like, this is our kill box, right? We're going to do it. And it's all right, fine. I'm like, yeah, but you're not prepped anything. What are we going to do? You've got nothing planned.
We'll just use what we got. Well, we got spinny things.
Yeah, we got those big spinny turbine things. We'll use those.
Some kind of turbine.
And what's great is that after it gets trapped in that, it comes back up, and by this point Arnold's been down for the count. Grace is pretty down for the count, and Sarah's kind of down. She's been knocked down as well. I love that as Rev 9. I think he's actually fighting Grace. I think he's about to kill Grace. I think he's right on the cusp of killing Grace. Danny just picks up something and starts hitting the shit out of him. She starts fighting. Yeah. And what I like about it is that he's clearly weakened at this point. He's been through the ringer, so he's a weaker Terminator right now. And she says, I don't care, I'm going to fight back. And this is kind of coming back to the kind of the we can fight back message of the movie. This kind of we can be strong, we can fight. Obviously the feminist part's there, but also just the general fighting the oppression in general, right? And she's like, no, screw this, I'm going to fight back myself. And it's kind of her Sarah Connor moment, right? It's her in the factory at the end choosing to, and that I was choosing to run and fight for her life as opposed to physically fighting back. But this is different because she's not Sarah Connor, she's John Connor. So essentially, as
was stated in the film.
Yes. Didn't really need that. Yeah, Sarah didn't need to say she's John. That was kind of.
I actually really like the flashback / forward scene that we get of her when she's a couple years older and saving young Grace.
Oh sure, yeah, I like that.
The humans, she still looks kind of like a kid, but I mean the things that she says, they really work.
Although I did have one problem with that scene. I thought the acting of the thugs she tried to convince to be good were not good. They were bad.
Consistent with the other Terminator films. With Bill Paxton.
With Salvation.
Who's amazing.
Yes, Bill Paxton's great. Yes. Nice night for a walk. Yeah. This guy's a couple of cans short of a 6-pack. Anyway, see how easy it is to just start quoting Terminator 1 and 2.
Yeah, I watched it this morning.
So yeah, she's beating the shit out of him, and basically she obviously she can only sort of hit it so much before it's maybe going to get its strength back and kill her. And Sarah's yelling at Arnold help her, you son of a bitch.
Feet, soldier.
On your feet. I shouldn't say that line, but it's basically at that moment, Carl, wake the F up. And that's the Carl. And I was like, do you know what? I would have liked that a lot if we'd actually spent the whole movie building to it. But it was introduced so late. We've not done enough to really earn that moment. But the moment with Arnold that I do really like, not in the context of this movie, although I do like the idea of him getting redemption, but in the context of Arnold saying goodbye to the franchise, is him holding down the evil Terminator as the most heroic version ever of the main theme plays, as his skin is burning off to reveal the skeleton. Like, that moment on its own is beautiful. It's because the turbine's like, you know, because they've got the EMP out of because the power source that Grace has can kill him, and you know, Arnold's holding it down into him so he can't get back up, and he has to essentially hold him down while everything's going to explode. So he's sacrificing himself, and as he's doing it, it's his the good arms, like the skin's starting to like burn away, and it's revealing the arm, and he turns and looks up at Sarah and says, "For John," as his face burns off, and it just reveals and what's so beautiful, and this is where it makes me think again of these other movies. This reminds me of Jurassic World in a weird way, and stay with me here when I say this. Jurassic World, you've got this shitty new hybrid thing, this new beast that's the villain, right? And the hero at the end of the movie is the T-Rex. It's the T-Rex and the Velociraptor. The two main dinosaurs from Jurassic Park team up to take on the bad dinosaur, right? And win. And it's this heroic moment. It's this standing thing where you're like, yes, screw you, you stupid thing. The T-Rex forever. And this moment is the classic endoskeleton, the T-800 endoskeleton, like his last hurrah, the last time we theoretically should ever see one, because there's no more coming from the future. They're all gone. This is the last of its kind, and it's saving the day. It's going out with sacrificing itself to save the day for hope in the future. And there's kind of like this beautiful imagery of the last ever like classic Terminator skeleton, like dying, holding down this evil Terminator. Like there's this like, again, it's Sarah Connor and the Terminator from the first movie in essence, teaming up to taking out this bad Terminator. And it's kind of like, like our like heroic, like, you know, old versions going out with one last hurrah. And that element of it works quite well, even though there's too much nostalgia stuff in this movie. That moment does work for me. Like hearing that theme with the brass comes in to really oomph it up, because you hear like a sort of emotional string version coming in, and then the brass comes in at the moment of like detonation where he says, "For John," and I'm like, you know what, that moment worked for me on its own. Is the goodbye to Arnold, I couldn't have asked. I mean, I wish the movie earned it more, but as a goodbye to Arnold, I couldn't have asked for a better moment.
Don't come back for any more reboots.
No,
of this franchise.
You're done. If
this one fails in the box office, and they're like, "Screw it, we'll do it again in 5 years," don't come back.
Yeah, don't. Especially because by that point you'll be like 75 or something like that. Like at that point, too much, too old, too much.
Yeah, good.
Yes. And I love this epilogue scene that I really love, where Danny goes to see young Grace, like who's playing in a playground. Again, kind of evoking imagery of T2, right? The playground, looking through the mesh fence at the playground. Very T2. And then it becomes very T1 because it's in the very similar Jeep to the end of T1, and Sarah's already there. And what I really liked here, obviously, again, you've got this brass version of the main theme coming in. It's this heroic moment, but keep in mind here, it's Danny who drives. She gets in and drives perfectly. So it's just this nice little bookend of like, no, she's driving now. And now, don't get me wrong, my one problem with this scene is I wish there was no dialogue. I wish it was just her getting in the car next to Sarah Connor. They're both sitting there with sunglasses on, and they drive off down the road into, you know, the future, right?
You didn't want to hear her say that she won't let her die for it again?
Yes, I didn't need any of the explanation. They kind of over-explained it too much. But just the visual of them getting in the Jeep together and driving off at the end of T1. And again, this message that now it's her that's going to save the future. It's a new generation. It's a new future. All these
Sarah
things.
Connor gets to train another John Connor. You know, it's what she was meant to do.
And what's beautiful about that is that, like, of course she's equipped to do this. She did it before. She can do it again, damn it. And she's the best equipped to do it. And there is something beautiful about that message of, no, it's not like, I mean, obviously there's the feminist side of like, it's not a man, it's just you. Like, it's not like as great as Sarah Connor's story. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think Sarah's story in the first movie is better than this movie, because I don't think this is as well written as Terminator or directed as Terminator. But like the idea that in Terminator, it was the idea that, no, your son that we hear about, that's just this man, your typical all hero man is going to be the savior, and you're just the mother of the savior. But
you
now
get to birth it. Congratulations.
Because there's that awkward line she has actually, where when she still thinks it is going to be her son, she says, "Oh, it's just your womb that's important," and that's kind of weird because Sarah's like really important to John, and not just because she gave birth to him. Like, she's kind of like a big deal to him in terms of shaping him to be who he is.
Yeah, well, Sarah is, because Sarah's the one who trains John. That's
Yeah.
why she's important too. She's a legend.
I
We
guess
don't
what
know that Danny is a legend. We know that
sure.
we think that Danny's going to give birth to the legend.
But I guess it's going back to over explain the message too much. Like I think the idea of the twist being that it's her is enough for the message to work. It didn't need Sarah
Yeah.
making this really on the nose line about it's your womb that's important. Otherwise you're just flesh. Like that felt like a weird on the nose statement to make at that point.
Yeah, we get it.
We get it, and I like the message a lot. I actually like it a ton.
Yeah, me too.
I think they drove it home a bit too much occasionally. A moment I'd glossed over because there's a lot of references, like we said, to the previous films. There's one that I do think I want to mention that I liked because of what it represented in the previous films. Is when Arnold's leaving the house, he almost like picks up the sunglasses and like the dun 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 dun, and then he chooses to not put them on because if you go back to us talking about the first two Terminator movies, in Terminator 1 he goes from not having sunglasses to having sunglasses, the idea that he's become less human. But in Terminator 2 he goes from not having them, having them to not having them to show that he's becoming more human, and that's why Sarah has them, is because she's becoming less human over the course of the film. So this moment here of him picking them up and choosing not to put them on, again, even just the idea that he chooses, it's not about like what makes most sense, because he never chose to take them off in Terminator 2. It just happened by circumstance, but it still represented something visually. Here the character makes a choice not to take them, so again I like that idea. Again, it's a small good thing and an execution that's not great, but
Right. Well, we also talked about like he originally wears the sunglasses not to look cool, but to hide that he's a machine because his eyes are exposed or whatever. His is damaged in some way and he needs to cover it up.
and the first one, yeah.
But in the first one, in the second one, he kind of chooses to wear them because it makes him look cool.
Well, my theory
So
on
a little bit like, okay.
I think my theory on that is that I don't know. It's something to do with their vision, like the sunglasses helps or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but you have to make up a theory for that to work. 'Cause
True.
it makes sense in the first film. In the second film, like he's just like programmed to try to be as cool as possible. That's the only way that it really works out. He gets the coolest bike.
Yeah,
He
but,
gets the coolest jacket.
Terminator 2 is nearly perfect, so you know what? I'll let it slide.
It's true. I do. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let
Like
it
we
slide.
want to see him in sunglasses. I get it.
Yeah. But again, that has a story, like not story probably. That has a thematic beat to play out. Him losing the sunglasses tells us something. It represents something, and this is what I'm saying. This moment here with the sunglasses, it's a callback to the other movies, but it actually says something about who he is now. It actually gives us information. Whereas some of the other ones, like Sarah saying "I'll be back," is just nothing but fan service. It's just nothing but hey, wink, wink. Remember, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Remember that. So the ones that actually add to the plot and tell us something about the character and how they've changed or something like that are great. The ones that are just wink wink here to like say nostalgia, remember Terminator, like those ones not so much.
Yeah.
So
All right.
those can be a problem. But yeah, no, I mean I like the ending. I like the ending a lot, and it does set up this idea where we have this new future now. And this is the thing: if we do somehow get a sequel to this, I would be game for one. And I don't love this movie. I think it has a lot of problems. I've mentioned a number of them throughout, but there's definitely a lot of things in here I liked. But if we get a sequel to this, which I would be game for, which I've never been to any of the other ones up until now, is they can't have T-800s, they can't have Arnold, they can't have anything from Skynet. It has to be about this new future. It has to be about Danny. It has to be
original.
Yep.
Which is not something that they like to do in a Terminator film. So
yes,
we'll see.
But this did have some new ideas in it, even though it did still kind of stick largely to the formula, which is to its detriment. I think. I think that's one of the things that kind of it suffers from. But I do like Grace. I like Danny, and I cared about them surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And they always felt vulnerable, which was nice, which is good. But
yeah, I agree. Like she was like a really powerful Kyle Reese.
Yes. Yeah, she reminded more.
I like that she was never used for comedy.
No, never. No, she was dead serious. She reminded me far more of Kale than she ever did, like the Good Terminator. She even though she had the augmentations, like she always felt more like a Kale Reese character.
Yeah, definitely.
Down to the volunteering, down to the fact that she was in the Resistance. All these things. Like
yeah. I think we were meant to. She's meant to be our Kyle Reese.
Hell,
Proxy.
even the idea that she like dreams a flashback. That literally happens in Terminator One
Yeah.
with Kyle. So you know, there's that. And we don't get much of that original future, but when we do get it at the start, it does feel like that original future, and I thank them for it.
It feels like it belongs
Yeah,
in this world. So yeah. Thank you, Terminator Dark Fate.
thank you for that, but not without your faults. And like
That's all right.
ultimately, it still feels like a lesser film. It's nothing compared to T1 and 2. It does feel like an optional expansion, if you want to phrase it that way.
No, it doesn't make me angry.
It doesn't make you angry. Um,
Yeah. Are people upset about this movie?
I've
You
seen
kind of sound like you've.
it's been very 50-50. I've seen people say that it shits over all over T2, and they sound very upset about that. They think it just throws it all out the
Oh,
window.
okay, so they're just holding on to the one moment then. Really?
I guess. I guess the whole idea that it erases that entire future. I guess, but for me, I think if the franchise is going to continue,
I mean, it's got to.
it's got to do a new thing. It's got to have a new, fresh
Leave the past behind.
thing to spin out
Kill
of.
it if you have to.
Now, don't get me
That's
wrong. I still believe you can do a good future war movie with John Connor. However, I think Salvation ruined that as an idea for people, and I think the time has passed. I think now, yes, we do something. Because this is the thing. I love that this movie actually has something to say. It has this, this fresh character who's a very different character, and its message is very positive, which is something that I think we need. I think movies that have something to say inherently feel like they have more purpose. And while I think
Yep.
the pacing and the execution's a bit off, I think the action is not always good. Some of the moments do not have the weight they should because they don't feel earned. Ultimately, there is still a message behind there. There's something to say. There is moments that are good. I like the music a lot. I like the new characters. I think this is the sort of thing where I think a sequel to this that really goes in deep to the new stuff could really become something special. Where it really
It would have to be a future war film, right, for the sequel?
not necessarily. I could see it being like right before the New Judgment Day and like at the end of her training, and there's
And
maybe like
another Terminator gets sent back to kill them, or
maybe like there's Terminator's been sent back, or
isn't that too redundant at this point?
well, it depends. I mean, I feel like Sarah Connor doesn't really survive into Judgment Day, right? I feel like if you want to have her training Danny, that's the second movie, still pre-Judgment Day. If you want to have Danny's like rise after, then yes, it's going to be after Judgment Day.
Okay.
If I was to put money on it, I would say it's set before Judgment Day, and it's still going to be time travel.
Well, that's the formula that I think a studio would say, yes, this is what we need to do, because we need to have a Terminator go back in time and try to kill our hero. But
Yes.
if you want to bring Mackenzie Davis back, then you have to have a future war film
Yeah,
because she's got to be older.
yes, but that means Danny has to be much older though. If she's going to be adult Mackenzie Davis.
Yeah, that's all right. She's like a teenager in this movie, so it'd be a couple years from now. Maybe she'll grow another foot. Who knows?
She is really small. Actually, she's like 5 foot nothing.
Yeah, she's really small.
But like, because I mean, you buy that she's only a few years older when we see the flashback or flash forward when she saves kid Grace, because we see that Grace in present day is only a few years younger than this. This is only like 4 years in the future. But like adult Grace, like by the time she's like her age in this, like Danny has to be like pushing what, 50, mid-40s at least. You do math?
Adult Grace?
Yeah. If you want Mackenzie Davis in the sequel in the future war, it means that
Well,
Danny has to
she's
be
32 right now.
right.
So if you do a few years from now, yeah, whatever. So what? Nothing wrong with pushing 40.
Oh, that's a sore spot.
No, I'm not pushing 40.
I agree. I don't think you are either.
No. I'm like around Mackenzie Davis age.
As am I. I would say we're both equally around her age.
Yes.
Opposite ends of that around, but
We don't need to go into specifics.
I love it. So yeah, but yeah, I mean,
I
Dark
think you
Fate.
gave a pretty good summary of your thoughts. Maybe it's time to rate.
I was just going to go into ratings.
Yeah.
I was kind of going to summarize a little bit again, admittedly, but yes, we'll go into ratings. Tara, you can summarize your thoughts and rate Terminator Dark Fate.
Okay. Well, I think as far as Terminator sequels go, past T2, it's definitely the best one we've had. I agree. The stuff that's really good about the movie, I think, is great, and I really held on to it, and I actually really want to see it again. But unfortunately, it does still suffer from new action movie problems and not trusting its audience problems, and
Clinging to the past a bit too much.
That is going to hurt it. Yeah, clinging to the past a bit too much, and that is going to hurt my rating a bit. But I still recommend it. I can't believe it, but I'm going to recommend a Terminator sequel past T2. And I think it's a... Do I want to go 8? Because 8's pretty high.
8 in my scale says it's great. Do you think it's great?
I think it's a 7.5.
That non-committal, I love it.
Yeah.
I am dancing a little bit lower. A little bit.
Okay.
I am thinking around a 6.5, maybe a 7. Because I think I've actually came off cross as sounding more positive than that in this review, just because I'm so satisfied that it's not a complete train wreck like the last one. So I think by its nature, I've definitely... But my complaints that I've made, though, some of them are pretty big. Like, my feelings, especially later on as the film goes on, when I feel like the action doesn't have the weight to it that I want it to, and I feel like the big like emotional moments like are good in theory, but don't have the actual weight there to make them work as well as they should. You know, it's almost like this is how you feel about Arnold in this movie, right? Or what they're hoping for is that they're basically hoping that your feelings about Arnold in T2 will carry over, so that they don't have to do as much with this Arnold, even though it's a completely different character technically.
Yeah, it's not the same guy because he got melted.
Exactly. So this is a new character, but they're hoping that we'll just carry over our feelings here because we care about Arnold the Terminator, and that's not true. It's a different character. So I think by relying on that, it doesn't quite work. So I'm going to go 6.5. I still have to be harsh for the reasons why I think it does ultimately come across as just a decent movie with some great ideas.
Okay.
But there's some stuff, I mean, I'll say this much, I have been listening to the last few tracks of that soundtrack like tons of times in the last couple of days since I saw it.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad I'm glad that they used the themes.
Oh, me too.
Because
so glad.
They work.
They really do. Properly.
If you're going to bring something over from the early films, why not bring out for, the stuff that people love that wasn't used in the other sequels for some reason?
I don't know. It's baffling. And that's the other thing with the references, though, is that, we saw Genesis, Salvation, and 3 also all make all these callbacks. And I feel like even some of the callbacks in this feel like the callbacks we've seen already. Like, we've done this callback with this thing before already. We'd done, like... I mean, thank God they didn't have Arnold do the smile. Oh my God. I was almost expecting it. Or the thumbs up somehow. Like,
I was so expecting a thumbs up at the end.
Oh, see if they
please don't do it. Please don't do it.
See if he'd done the thumbs up as he was like burning and the theme was playing, I would have it would have ruined the entire moment. I'd have hated it. I'd have been like, no, this Arnold has not learned the thumbs up. This is bullshit.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Yes, they can't do any of that shit. None of that shit. So, but anyway, that is Dark Fate. It's surprisingly positive. It's not a home run. Like that's the thing here. It's got some good ideas and it is decent, but it is not great. It's not a classic or a masterpiece. It never really could be with the way that we're going to go about it with this nostalgia sequel kind of idea. Ultimately, it feels like a fan trying to make a Terminator movie, 25 years later. And as that, it's not bad, but it's not the home run that you maybe want. If you're going to... I'll just reiterate what I said at the start. If you're going into this hoping for a true Terminator 3 that movie is never going to exist, and you have to accept that this is more Terminator expansion, the Legion timeline or whatever.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. It's Legends, not canon.
Yes. Because was that a Star Wars reference?
It sure is.
You bitch. Terminator 2 for me is always going to feel at the end of the story, and then everything afterwards is like this optional, like, what if scenario kind of thing.
Sure.
But there you go. Terminator Dark Fate. That is us. We've done it. We've officially done all 6 Terminator movies, and given that this one's not doing that well, we'll see you for the next soft reboot in in 3 or 4 years' time.
Don't do it, Arnold. Just stay out.
Get out.
Get out.
This is Texas. I do drapes. I do drapes. So this has been Terminator Dark Fate. You can let us know what you think of the film in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, of course. Remember to ding the bell on YouTube to make sure you get the notifications. Obviously, if you want to support us, you can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to them, and you can give us 5 stars. That helps a lot. It puts us higher up in best of lists, and it puts us higher in recommendation lists and things like that. All good things. Of course, Tara earlier on in the middle mentioned Patreon. Go there if you want to support us financially, get some cool bonuses for your troubles. So you can go do that. If you watch the live streams I do occasionally on YouTube, you might see me do an interpretive dance if people pay me for it.
What?
I'll explain in a second after we've cut. That has been Terminator Dark Fate. Get us on Twitter at the Ace Podcast if you want updates and stuff like that. But that is us. So check out other content we do. Horror Movie Podcast, Screams After Midnight. Me and Tara also review Twilight Zone episodes every week. Right now we're reviewing the Watchmen TV show together. So check out that too. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi movies, guys. And computer, add salsa.
Yum yum.